So we were talking just before, I guess, a little bit ago about how, like, with kids having certain shows on when they're younger, and like how we always hear, not always, but I feel like you do hear parents complain like, and they always wanted that show, or they always want that song, or just like the classic, like the kids want stuff on repeat, which I think is so funny. I still have on my like what to research list, like, why do kids do that? Why do they like the back to back? Not even like, oh, you just watched that yesterday. It's like, no, we literally just finished, credits roll, started from the top.
Yeah.
But like, oh, it would be interesting just to like have our stuff on in the background. Like you talked about how your mom always had the news on and kids like weren't interested because like the news, they don't know what's going on. It's very slow pace, slow everything. That I was thinking because of that also, I'm going to teach today like the babies, and I wonder if that kind of works in with the why certain things aren't as exciting to them anymore. Like when I'm a little bit more energetic and talk with a little more enthusiasm, that should intrigue them. But I don't know if it intrigues them as much anymore because they're hearing it all the time versus everything else should be monotone. So when I need them to pay attention for a full 45 minutes and I'm talking in a certain way, that can intrigue them enough to stay engaged for 45 minutes to where now they're getting that so much that they're desensitized. So when I talk like that, it's like, unless there's like flashing cool colors and different things happening, my voice isn't enough to keep them engaged.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that you had brought up before of like just how overstimulated kids are now with the TVs going and you know something's always got to be going and happening, and just like all of their senses are being just stimulated all the time. That I don't know, I feel like growing up, my mom with the daycare and everything, like it was so monotone. It was so relaxed and calm. It's like the TV wasn't really on. Kids were just playing with toys. It was more imaginative because they're just all doing their own thing, and it was not stimulating at all. It's interesting of like, you know, teaching some of the kids now just how young they are, and it's like if you're not giving them something constantly or talking in a fun voice or like engaging with them 24/7, like they just start looking around and like getting into stuff and doing other things and just trying to find stimulation all the time because it's so what they're used to. It's kind of weird, like how kids just can't at all sit still, to where it's like growing up seeing all these kids, you know, come through the daycare and everything. It's like
they didn't used to be like that just a little bit ago.
Yeah, it's like I don't remember them having to be so stimulated all the time. And
that's what I do. Weird. I like comparing, you know, certain things to when I was growing up, or like my mom taught that age group for decades. That kind of comparing, like, were kids like that then, or like when you taught 3-year-olds, like how was it? And it's like, oh, it's so night and day. Like, oh yeah, kids weren't doing that, or kids didn't have this issue, or you know, that I wonder how much that was just like, oh, I wonder if that plays into it at all. Just like how much stimulus they're getting from TV that my voice isn't enough to.
Oh, it's got to be.
Wow them anymore.
I mean, it's like we've heard all of the, like how these shows will do studies with kids to just make it more intriguing to them and interactive. And a big part of it is just like having to change the camera angle or like change things up very quickly. The quicker they do that, the more engaged the kid is because things are changing and it's something new to look at. To where, it's like, I bet you go watch Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, old Sesame Street, all those older shows, Barney, and it's like just the same thing.
I bet even as adults we'd be like, pick it up.
Yeah.
Like, let's go.
Boring. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you kind of, I don't know. Maybe it's because we watch older movies a lot or frequently enough that I don't feel like I notice it that drastically with older movies where I'm like, okay, come on, here we go. Let's pick up the pace. I feel like, I don't know. I don't know if it's like even back then they were doing it a little bit more quickly, or it's just we watch enough of the old stuff that the high, new, stimulating, everything changing all the time is like, okay.
The only time that I've really been like, holy shit, like, let's come on, is the first Star Wars.
That was, was it? No.
It wasn't
Star Wars. It was Star Trek, I think we tried.
Okay.
And that intro scene is like fucking 25 minutes long and like nothing's happening.
But when you break it down and you think of like how much this is where like it starts to go, what do we spend money on? Because you think of like the CGI that had to go in, and also CGI was new at that time, so it's like it had to be even more expensive.
Did they even have CGI
maybe they didn't
then?
sit it, but they built the whole scene where it's like it's just they're showing every angle of the ship.
Yeah,
and it's like just like
it's like 5 minutes long of just like a ship going through, and they just like look at this side of it, look at the front of it,
and it's like it's not even
Look
like
at
the ship is
side of
going
it.
fast, like everything is slow.
No,
But you think of like how expensive everything to make that scene was, and now it is like see it go by and it's done, and they
Yeah.
never use it again. They
Yeah.
never use that scene again.
which is crazy.
Oh,
It's probably
gosh.
still super expensive
Yeah,
to get for the CGI of all that, but it's like they know you're not going to keep watching if it's 5 minutes
yeah.
long of just like a
Holy
ship going
crap.
through. Like they're going to, like you said, it's
Yeah.
going to be 2 seconds of like here's the ship and that they're on. Okay, next.
that was the only time where I'm like,
That did get yeah. I
I
remember
get it.
that.
Like I get it. Let's go.
Oh man.
Especially
yeah.
that movie's so long. It's like you could have
That-
shortened half of these
And I think
scenes.
that movie too, like that's real old
Sure,
to where we don't usually watch that old.
sure.
I mean, we
Yeah.
just watched Rounders, and that I think was like late 90s or something like that. And that not at all did that seem like it was too slow.
Do you notice that you can tell, just like music, how they have like similar vibes depending on what decade? Can you clearly tell that with movies? Because I think I can.
You know, it's hilarious. I don't think I've ever heard music in a movie ever.
What? What do you mean?
Never hear it.
Oh, that's so interesting.
I can't recall. Like, you know how people
I mean,
are
is
like,
it so interesting? No, maybe not. But
it's very interesting.
for me,
No.
knowing you, it's not that interesting. It's interesting when, like, you really break it down, like how many people would notice. I notice it, but I like music. Like, there's awards for whoever does
Yep.
what is that called? Oh, I don't have my computer here.
I don't know. Isn't it just like an Emmy?
No, like
Like
who
best
is the like
soundtrack?
what's the person that does that?
The score?
Thank you.
I don't even listen to it.
Thank
and I
you.
know it.
Thank you.
But
Like I can recall certain movies where I'm like, that soundtrack was awesome. And it wasn't like a musical. Like I remember the latest Cruella one.
yeah,
I was like, this has an awesome soundtrack.
that was a good movie. Emma Stone.
Yeah.
People say that all the time of like, oh, that soundtrack in
Yeah.
that movie was amazing. I don't think I've ever heard music in a movie ever. I can't recall any soundtrack, music, like, or ever thinking like, I like the music in that. Never. That never plays a role in any movie I've ever watched. I never hear the music or listen to it or notice it at all.
Interesting.
I'm just paying attention to like the continuity errors. I'm like
Yeah, we
searching
both-
for those.
yeah.
I'm like,
There's
wait,
like one strand of hair, like there wasn't the last scene. Rewind,
Yeah.
rewind.
like they just set the cup down with their left hand, but now it's on the right side of the table. How does that make sense? No, I never listen. I don't notice the music at all.
That's yeah.
The only, I guess, like, there's like two. It's like Rocky, but that's just so iconic. And then it's like the Star Wars intro music.
Yeah.
But it's
The
like,
next thing you watch, that's what is kind of cool. Like, and when you look up a soundtrack of a movie and it's just like, why is there 30 songs? But if you actually do pay, like the next thing we watch, just like for a couple minutes, pay attention to how many different songs they use just to create a scene. Because it is like they're walking, a little bit of a clip. Oh, they're opening the car. Need a little bit of a different clip of a song. It's like thinking
Yeah.
of that person going through and like having to understand the tone of the scene to then have the music enhance it. That's so, and then to just like think of like the log of music that you would have to be good at that job.
oh, yeah. Yeah. Well,
You
you
know?
just showed me a clip of like Charlie Puth doing
Yes.
something with, what's her name? Bobby something? Altov or something?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Bobby something, yeah.
And he's like, what's your favorite song or whatever? And she gets to it. And it was like the theme song to Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And he just like starts playing it.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Mm-hmm.
That is an insane kind of talent. The movie thing though, and it's not that I definitely think the music plays a role. I think that's like what's so cool about, I don't know, what's good about that is like you can tell the music is well placed if you don't even really notice it.
Yeah.
Because you're just kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know, just like feeling what the scene is, watching it, and it's like you can hear the music in the background or whatever. It's like the kind of intention of the scene or whatever. It's like a scary movie. It starts to get weird, or I don't know, something starts to happen, or just there's some movies where it's like they don't have a soundtrack, and that's kind of cool if they can do it well.
Sure.
Where it's like the whole movie is just like nothing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is kind of crazy.
I think you have to have really good actors for that. And
it's got to
maybe
be a great story.
and
it's
like
gotta be great
cinematically,
writing.
like you have to be able to have good shots, I think, in order to stay like people engaged.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so funny that you don't notice it.
No, not at all.
I think I'm hit or miss. I'm one that like I really am like, oh wow. Like I like how the music is accentuating the scene. Like I'm really kind of nerdy about that. I'm like, oh, I like that. I would not want the scene to not have this sort of vibe to it. That I will like the song because of it was like associated with that scene and it made it feel cooler to me.
Yeah, see, I don't notice that stuff at all.
Like in the last show the Summer I Turned Pretty one, there was like a kissing scene where they had a Beyonce song over it, and then they do like a dub, like taking it off, like the behind the scenes, and I was like, oh, this would be so weird.
Oh yeah.
But it's like with the shots and the different colors and the music and how everything was working together, I was like, oh, this is so kind of like a big moment, big scene. And you watch it without it, it's like, oh, this is so awkward.
Yeah.
Like everybody on set being so quiet too.
Oh God, that'd be the most uncomfortable.
It's so weird. But what was something else I was going to say about that? Oh, that if I think I've showed you this kid before, but if you are on Instagram, there's this kid, I think it's Charlie. If you search like Charlie music or something, I feel like it'll pop up.
The young kid?
Yes. That I want to know, like, what's his origin story? Like, did his parents want him to be very musically inclined? Did they start that out? Like, did he just show interest and they kind of kept pursuing that? But yeah, that kid is kind of crazy.
Yeah, just how talented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at such a young age that his brain, like, obviously his brain works very well in that realm, but I wonder how that translates into other things. Or like, because he is so, that makes sense to him, I wonder what other things he would be good at because like he uses that part of his brain a lot.
Yeah.
Like I would just kind of like want to see him just like live as a kid and like wonder what other things that you pick up on and that you tend to like because of that.
Yeah, well maybe it's only that. You know?
Yeah. But like I feel like people have said like if you play an instrument or you're really good musically, you're typically better at math. Something with to do with like the counting. Like I wonder if he would be really good at math or something like that. I mean, granted, he's like 7 now, but it's like when he was younger, was he able to understand those things quicker?
Well, and it's probably just like what muscle are you working type of thing. What part of your brain are you working a lot that just continues to get strengthened? That it's like, yeah, if musical is a little bit more math driven and I don't know, just like reading music and all that kind of stuff, that maybe it's like there's a similarity of that part of the brain is good at just numbers and equations and that sort of thing. Just like the other side of the brain, it's like, creativity and I don't know, the more. Would the opposite be like writing and reading and literature and that sort of thing? Because I feel like it's usually like math and science go hand in hand, and then like social studies or like history and reading and writing, like literature goes together because
I don't know, because you would think, okay, he's really good at like being able to hear something and then compute it into music, and then be able to like he's really good audibly. That typically that creative side of it would lean more towards writing and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
interests and what you're good at might be different also.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know what I am anymore with that.
I would say you're still more of that like very factual critical thinking element.
So like math, science, kind of.
To where like to be able to write a story and to formulate all of your different creative thoughts and mold it into something that makes sense and like progress that out. I don't see you being very good at that.
This is the most I've ever read.
Yeah.
In a certain period of time. So that I've just thought maybe there's a difference there, but yeah, I don't know. Like this is the most I've ever read and like have been into history and that sort of stuff. So I don't know. I just thought maybe the tides were turning on that because I'm obviously not just doing math in my spare time.
Right. But it's almost like I wonder how that information is correlating into your life. Like, are you getting really good at being able to implement the information that you're learning into how you problem solve things and your day-to-day tasks versus someone that reads a book on the opposite, like the other side of the coin is like maybe they're like, oh, well, that inspires me to do this. And it has nothing to do with the actual information gathered, more just tones of what they're reading.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either. I feel like you're definitely more like literature, history, that sort of thing. Your math skills are
so bad.
Yeah.
So bad. Yeah, I like.
You're not good at the equation thing.
No.
You're like, well, I want to make it this different thing. It's like, well, that's not how it works.
No,
I don't create my own equations.
That's like I don't do well with the like simple like this plus this equals this. It's like I can't.
You're like boring.
Not even boring, but it's like it doesn't make sense to me. Like the whole like word problems. They're doing those in math where it's like this person had this many pieces.
Them trying to.
Oh my gosh, I would get lost so fast.
Yeah.
But if you tell me a story, or if I have to read a prompt, I'm able to tell you 5 different directions of how I would interpret that, what each character is trying to maybe say within that, what the theme of it is, what the direction is supposed to go after that. No problem. But you put like numbers that are supposed to compute to something. It's like my brain is, I get sleepy. I get sleepy.
You're reading math problems. This math is.
It is like my brain starts to just like stop.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
It's bad.
Yeah, I'm totally not. I'll have to read the same paragraph 10 times before I'm like, what's going on here? Like, I still don't understand who's doing what. I hated. I was so bad at that. Like when you had a book that the whole class was reading, and then you'd have to do like answer these 10 questions about these last 4 chapters or whatever, and it's like, what did so and so say to so and so that made them upset? And I'm like, I don't know. I've read this 14 times and I still can't find that part. It's like, oh, I was so bad.
But it's just like, because it's just like a theme in the background. It's like no one actually said anything.
Yeah.
It's like you're supposed to pick up on the tone of why he's saying that.
Yeah, and that's exactly like, I mean, proof to the brain of just like what I'm good at. It's like, no,
there's no facts there.
Yeah, I'm looking for like when they said something that upset them.
Right.
It's like, where is it? It's that's the math part of me.
Right.
To where you're talking about like, no, there's a certain tone. I'm like, well, how do you know what the tone is? It's just words. Nobody's saying, like, you can't hear it.
You got to break down, like, well, why did they use those adjectives in the way that they said it? And he said he sat down dramatically before he said it. It's like, well, that's supposed to tell you everything right there.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm not putting this together. Oh, so bad at those. They would annoy me so much. I hated them because it was always like, I understand I'm supposed to answer these questions, but I'm reading this book and nowhere in the book is this happening. Like, did you give me the wrong book?
Yeah.
Is there a different book? Is there a sequel to this that I'm actually supposed to be reading that has these answers? Because it's not in this fucking book.
Yeah. Yeah.
God, I hated those so much.
That's why I mean, I get it because that's how they're quizzing kids. They're literally just testing us to see if we even read it. But
then test us if we read it. Don't have this whole I mean, I guess
that's what I wish it would be.
I mean,
like,
you were good at it and did well with it, so
that's what I would want. Like, I don't like those. And again, it's just because they're trying to see if we did the work of reading it. They're just quizzing us on like, how many times did you go to the store in this chapter? Or like, who was the sister's name? What was the sister's name? Versus like, what was your interpretation of this chapter? What did you get from it? How would you, break down the solution to the conflict that came up?
And are you saying you wish it was more like the interpretation?
Yes. Because that's at least like, to me, that is what with reading and writing is supposed to be about, is your interpretation of things. You're able to express, again, the tone of what you're reading to be able to like expand on that. But if you're just quizzing me on what the girl's name is, it's like, well, my answer is going to be the same as yours, even though we're going to get way different ideas from reading that.
Well, and that's where I disagree that they're not just testing you on if you read it or not. Because I think they would do more of that, like, what was this person's name? Because that was my problem, was I am reading this. I can't find the answers. To where if you were to just tell me what's your interpretation of, what Sally, said to whoever, like,
Yeah.
then I could go, oh, this is supposed to be like, it's supposed to be my interpretation.
Yeah.
Not, what did Sally say to upset him? And it's like, I'm trying to find this, but the secret is that it's actually your interpretation of it in this certain area and blah blah blah. It's like,
see,
if you were quizzing me on if I read it or not, give me those kind of easy find answers, because I can tell you if I read it or not. But if you're looking for my interpretation of it, it's like you got to give different questions. I think.
I guess we had different worksheets after the reading, because mine were more of like, what's her name versus the interpretation. I feel like in my eye, their way of like asking what's your interpretation is most kids could make something up. That's why it's like, it's not factual. So kids could just bullshit their way through by writing a really great prompt afterwards.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it's like, that would show that I'm at least, I know.
You can't win.
I know.
It's like,
to me, it's just like
our experience.
I know.
It's like, I have a different brain than you do, and the things that you're able to easily find within the book, I have to reread it 14 times.
But I guess
same with math though, is like, you show me the equation, I can probably do it right away. You have to practice it 14 times to then get it. So it's like, it's just harder for you in that, and then the reading is harder for me.
But that's where I disagree, because in math, that's the objective, is you're supposed to understand formulas. You're supposed to be able to look at things and understand how they piece together. So then there's an end solution, and that solution will never change. That's what you're practicing in math. In reading and writing, you're supposed to practice being able to evolve the story, or like understand what you're reading from your point of view, so that you're able to expand upon that, or to understand what the writing is supposed to be. Like, you're supposed to be able to understand it so many different ways. That's like, you're not, if you ask me what's the sister's name and what color shirt were they wearing, you're not practicing with the students like how to think that way.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think the point of those classes should be to practice like kind of learning how to interpret things.
Yeah.
Not just like basically the math version of it, like the facts of like, what's her name? What's the sister's name? Mm-hmm. It's like, well, I could just go on Cliff Notes and find that, or go, look it up. But to get an opinion and an interpretation of it, because I think that's probably what's difficult about what would be grading that class too, is like you said, somebody can just bullshit their interpretation, but that is kind of what the goal of the class, my thought would be, is you're learning how to read something and have an interpretation of it, and then be able to hear from somebody else what their interpretation of it, and see how you guys saw it differently, what you each take from it. And then it's like, oh, okay. So you just start to, I think the idea would be to get a very large view of the picture of a bunch of different angles and being able to almost be opinionless with it.
Yeah.
I was like, I just see this story from a bunch of different angles, and so did other classmates. And I mean, to throw that whole whatever thing out of the whole our society thing of like, people are just looking at it through one tunnel vision. Nobody's looking at it from a broad view. They're or different angles or different interpretations, and going like, oh, I could see from that person's point of view, and I could see from that person's point of view. And everybody's just like, what's my singular point of view? And I'm only going to look at it through that way. And that's the only way I'm going to look at it. It's like, well, would have been helpful to have all points of view and be very broad so that like you have a mature understanding of this issue. Yeah. Rather than just so singular focused on one thing. Yeah. That those questions of like, what's Sally's sister's name? It's like, well, this isn't teaching that at all. It's just, you're basically making reading and writing math now. Right. It's like, just find the answer. I think because I've been in both styles of those classes, like, I don't remember, of course I wouldn't say it on here anyways, but the same English teacher that we had the same class, and it was the one that we watched a bunch of movies in. It was like, that was an English class versus I was in AP English. And it's like the AP English class, his style of teaching was way more, let's have a discussion about what we read. And then like, kind of like what you said, like, okay, you said that this is what you thought. You said this is what you thought. Like, not debate, but it's like, how are you both getting that? Yeah. And then being able to formulate that through writing. Well, like, let's talk about it, understand what you're trying to interpret, and then now let's write on it so that you understand how to actually do that in a way that now if someone in this classroom wasn't here, you'd be able to give it to them and go, this is my interpretation of this book, and this was his interpretation of this book, versus the class that we were in. It was so much more, what shirt was she wearing? Yeah, what color was the scarf and whatever. Yeah. Well, and that's, I think the school thing or just like the grading and everything has just made it so much about what's the right answer. And I think that's what sucks, especially in, literature and those classes of like, if you're reading books, I think some of the point with a lot of those books is to have your own point of view and interpretation of what's going on and kind of create your own, create your own point of view of the story. And they make it so, no, this is what it is. This is the answer. Kind of like the same with watching movies. Right. If you, like, some movies that are really cool where they take, like, this is from this character's point of view. And then they go to a different character and, and then they start to, like, just mesh them all together. That's, like, you're kind of doing that even in a movie that doesn't do that of, like, okay, when I watch this, I'm going to go from this character's point of view and pay attention to see what their story is kind of throughout it. And then I'll pay attention to this character's point of view and see what their story is. And it's like, you start to see everything come together, but you also start to understand each character and their development and all that kind of stuff. To when you're in school and they're telling you what it's supposed to be or has to be, it's like that whole factory mindset of like, nope, this is how you do it. This is how you look at it. And that's, you just keep going to where it's like those classes, I think, would be so much more beneficial if kind of like what you were doing in the, whatever one you were describing, as long as like you're participating and having a discussion and like you're having a point of view and interpretation of it and being able to do that, it's like, that's what it should be graded on. Not whether you're right or wrong according to what the teacher thinks or what the curriculum is, kind of thing. It's like, no, what's your interpretation, and can you kind of expand on that and defend it? It's like, that should be the point of the class. It's like, yeah, you get a good grade because you're participating and like you have a specific interpretation for yourself. Yeah. And you could show that kind of thing. Yeah. Rather than like, here's a worksheet, answer these questions. And it's like, well, this isn't how I think of it. I didn't think that this person was upset in this certain scene or whatever. Yeah. It's like, I thought they were acting more confident or something like that. but we want it to be just like one answer, move on.
Right.
One answer, move on. Like, this is what it is, move on. You don't think any more than just that. Especially
when, like, if you see reading or writing as somewhat of an art form, like, it's supposed, especially that's something that's nonfiction, it's supposed to be able to be based in creativity. And, like, that's why certain authors, you read their point of views on things. You read their ways of telling stories because it's coming from their mind, not just, well, everybody would read it or write it like this. That, I don't know, like, there shouldn't be any right or wrong. It's supposed to be all gray area.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's supposed to be answerless. It's like, there's not supposed to be, this is definitely what it is. That's why so many movies end with, like, we don't know.
Right.
What did happen?
Yeah.
You know, it's like we watched the Rounders movie, and at the end, he's going to Vegas.
Yeah.
That's like, we don't know if he did well or didn't do well.
Yeah.
It's like, you kind of have to have your own idea of what happens, or that's just part of the story, is you only took this certain segment of this person's life. And yeah, there's not supposed to be, but that's just not how our brains work.
We want
we want the math equation. We want it to all have an answer and be finished. It's hard for us to just like let things be just open-ended and no answer and like just floating kind of feeling. People don't like that. Most people don't like that. Yeah. And I don't know. I think it's beneficial to kind of be like that because so much of life is that. It's answerless.
Sure.
You know, what's the right answer? Do you
take this job or you take this job? Yeah. Yeah.
Do you make this amount of money with this job or that? Do you finance a car? Do you lease it? Do you buy it outright? Like, what do you do? Yeah. It's like nobody knows what to do.
Yeah. And I think, again, practicing that ability to think that way. Practicing the ability to, like, look at all of what's being presented to you, just like if you're reading a book and you're trying to understand maybe what the author is trying to tell you or what they're trying to display in that, but then also what's your interpretation of that so that you're able to create. I don't know who told me that, but when they were talking about reading, not told me specifically, when I heard someone talk about this, of like, all reading should be interpretation. Everybody should be reading a different story. That, like, once as an author, you don't have any control over the reader's point of view or the reader's like storyline. Like, you're just giving them kind of the skeleton, and they're thinking of a different, what the characters look like and what is their house. Like, you say a house, but like they're thinking of what that is. Like, you're just setting up the framework for their imagination to go.
Well, it's one of the things Chris D'Elia said about his like doing stand-up. It's like, I only own 50% of this, because when I say it, the other 50% of it is all up for everybody's interpretation. Yeah. You know, your life experience, your whatever is going on with you, the way you think, the way you're receiving it, and all that kind of stuff. That is the same with books and movies. And, you know, they talk about it all the time. Like, you can watch a movie 3 times and you start to pick out different things. Yeah. You start to like certain characters, dislike ones, and then they end up flipping and all that kind of stuff, especially with shows that go for 5, 6, 7 seasons. Like, your favorite character starts to switch to somebody else, and the one that you disliked starts to switch to somebody else, and it becomes so different each time. And same with books. You read books twice over, you pick up different things, you're a different person in it, and all that kind of stuff. That it's like people just don't, that naturally happens with those things, but when you're out in regular life, we don't see the world like that. We don't look at the world like that.
Even though that is definitely what it is.
Oh, for sure. It's like, one day I want to go work out, the next day I don't. What happened? Right. It's like, well, you're a person. It's like, this is what happens in life. Yes. You read a book one time, and then the second time is different. It's like, people just think it's this math equation all the time. Right. Where it's really this open-ended, weird, everything's different and changing. It's like, man, why did I had energy yesterday and now today I don't. I ate basically the same thing, went to bed at the same time, woke up at the same time, like, did a workout. All these things are the same. It's everybody wants it to be an equation. Right. But that's just not how it seems to work.
And I think the more comfortable that you can be in the like, well, let's expand out on this. And like, can this be okay? Or like, just, I'm going to see this from a different angle. Is there I mean, you even think about like conversations or arguments. If you can do that in, you know, by
the
reading.
Heat of the battle.
It's like, if you can read a book and go, okay, that's my initial, you know, interpretation of it. And now I'm listening to that guy and he has a very different interpretation of it. Is there a way that I can see that? Or can I read this again and, you know, oh, I read this 2 years ago, but I'm a different person now. So now I'm going to read it. And what else do I get from that?
Yeah.
Same way that when, you know, communicating with people or trying to understand the world, it's like being able to look at a thing and go, how many different ways can I look at this?
Yeah.
I think that is that part of the brain that you have to practice keeping that alive, because otherwise almost nothing is black and white.
Yeah.
So to be able to sit in that gray area and feel comfortable, like, well, let me think about his point of view. He sees it in this way. He says it in this way. Why?
Yeah.
Like, how can we see this, you know, what I think is so black and white? There is a yes or a no. And you're like, well, I think the opposite.
I think it's just maturity.
Sure.
Like, it's just, yeah. I mean, I totally agree.
And practice.
And you have to consciously practice it, because it's so easy to be like, you know, you're driving your car and somebody cuts you off or something and you're freaking out, yelling at them. But then 5 minutes later, you do the same thing and maybe don't even realize it, or you thought that you could get in front of them, you know, quicker, and it turns out like they actually had a green light and were coming and you didn't really realize it. It's like, and then you're like, oh shoot, I messed up. But 5 minutes ago, you're yelling at this one person because they cut you off, thinking that they're malicious or something and an asshole. Then you do it 5 minutes later and you're like, yeah, but I'm a nice guy and I didn't mean to. It's like, well, maybe they were a nice guy and didn't mean to. And it's like, you can create your own reality. Mm-hmm. You can choose to go like, that person maybe just didn't see me and they made a mistake, and they're maybe they're in their car going like, oh shit, I wish I didn't do that. Or you can choose to go like, that asshole, blah, blah, blah. They're just selfish and this and that. It's like, you don't know the answer. So why not just kind of pick the one that maybe doesn't make you feel angry and ruin your day? Yeah. So, and so much of life is like that. Yeah. It's like you can kind of just pick and choose whatever. And I think it is maturity. I think it's just knowing like, oh, I make mistakes all the time, or I choose to do things that maybe aren't the best decision. Other people have felt this way too and have done these things too. So maybe other people are doing that right now, and I can have some, you know, maturity and awareness of like, yeah, I've done that before, and like, I get it. Yeah. And they may be going through something, or they just suck today or whatever. So like, I'll just try to be mature and have a better point of view and like move on. Sure. Yeah. So easy to make yourself angry. Yeah. It's that whole thing. And
it's like, even easier to sit in it when you are angry.
Oh yeah. It's just like, it's the easiest snowball ever. Yeah. And it's like, so much of it is just choice.
So much of it is choice.
And you can just create it.
And it's so hard to actually believe that it is choice. But again, going back to like if you have a tough if you're tough mentally and you're tough emotionally, it is a choice.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I think so much of us are emotionally fragile, and I'm saying that including myself. That's like, no, the feeling is happening to me. I have no choice in the matter. Like, they made me mad. So now I guess I'm just mad.
Yeah. Well, and that, like, I'm curious as to how much of the anxiety has to do with that, of people just choosing to be anxious. There's how many different tools and methods to, you know, calm yourself down or control the way that you're thinking. And I think people, like you just said, people think it's all happening to them. They don't think that they are in control of any of it and the way that they think. And that's something that has been happening. That's something that I've been working on so much as of lately. Yeah. Of being in control of the thoughts in my head. Like, if I'm starting to go down a route of like, oh man, I don't want to do this. I want to just like get out of here and avoid it. And like, oh, I don't want to sweep up. I want to leave, or I don't want to, you know, do these little extra things that nobody's really going to even notice. And you start to go down that path, and just being able to like, no, I'm not going to wimp out on this. I'm going to finish the job. I'm going to do what I said I was going to do. I'm going to do what I need to do. And I think people, they just get into that snowball of like, let's just skip it. Let's just not do it. Let's just leave and get out of here. And they start to like, they act like that is happening to them, and they have no control over going, no, that's not the way we're going to think.
Yeah.
That's not the way we're going to do this. And it's something I've been doing lately that I think has changed. It's changing my brain quickly.
Cool.
Of it's like, oh no, I can just put my own thoughts in.
Sure.
You know, it's like there's thoughts that come about and are just happening.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that feeling of like, oh, it's happening to me. I can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
But I can just put my own in.
Right.
I can just go, no, that's what a puss would do. And we're not going to do that.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, okay.
Well,
and then you just do the thing that you were set out to do, or what was difficult or whatever.
Even like Rogan was talking about that on the one that we're listening to, where he's, you know, sleeping in. He's like, I'm always tired. And I just like, whenever I'm laying there in the morning, like, he's like, he's like, every day I have this conversation with myself of, you could just stay here longer.
Same.
He's like, you're your own boss. You literally don't have to go anywhere that you don't want to go. Yeah. Like, you don't have to work. You actually don't even have to work till 1:30. So you can sleep in an extra 20 minutes or whatever. And then he's like, I'm the one thinking that. I can just, like, my body's not going to force me to stay here. My body is tired.
Yeah, it's not like, no, let's get up. And you're like, I can't move.
Right. He's like, my brain controls what I do. So I can just go, no, you got to get up.
Yeah.
And your body has to follow.
Yeah.
It's like, there's nothing besides your thoughts that are keeping me here. And I do this every day. But like, as much as I had the power to go, you should sleep in a little bit longer, I had the equal amount of power to go, get up.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but it's so easy to fall into that. And I think the anxiousness, I think that unfortunately, like, as kids, I wish I could go back and like teach myself how to calm down a little bit better, because I think as adults, or, you know, when we're getting these anxious moments, it's like, oh, it's already been too far. Like, we let ourselves go right to 10, or, you know, close to 10, because we didn't practice, oh, when I'm feeling a 3, I'm going to take a little bit deeper of a breath, or I'm just going to pause a second, or I'm going to think of something that just makes me feel a little bit better, just to kind of get myself out of this moment for a second to then be able to regulate. We like let those little level 2s, level 4 moments slip away. And then when that 10 hits us, we're like, it's too much.
Yeah.
Now I can't think of the tools, because it's like, I'm so overwhelmed that like, I'm already here. There's no getting out of it. This is where I'm going to be, and it's happening to me. There's no way to get out. Because I think when we were in that smaller, more manageable, we didn't think of tools. We didn't practice tools.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where I just don't. I think like everything can be fixed, or there's an answer for everything. There's a solution to be able to find. And I think it's unique to each person of like what works. And I think when it's that anxiety and depression conversation, it's just so much of it, all of it is basically happening in the brain. And I think there's so many different things that we've even already talked about of like, go be active, go be more active, go do that kind of stuff. And this is one of those things that I've been doing more of, just like control the conversation in your head. Like, it's almost like you're talking to a child in your head. Right. And you have to be the adult. Like, I have to place those thoughts of like, no, I'm the adult here. This is what we need to do, and we're going to do it, and not let the child be in control of your life. And it's like, if you're getting anxious and feeling, you know, like, I don't know what it is, it's like, okay, let's calm down. Be the parent to yourself.
And that's where I think needs to be even further of a breakdown. It's like, calm down. Most people, I don't think, know how to calm down. That works for them individually. Like, you say calm down. Okay. am I just supposed to tell myself that and I'm going to just automatically calm? No. Like, you have to have tools that I can't do that. I can't go, you're pissed. Don't be pissed. Like,
yeah, that's what
okay. Okay, well, I can't do that.
I go, yeah, if I'm feeling pissed about something, I'm typically like, okay, you're pissed. Let's just stop.
You've always been way better at this than me.
This is ridiculous. And it's like, no. Okay, it's maybe another 2 or 3 minutes, but it just starts to go away. Again, to me, it's just like I'm in charge. I'm the parent. I'm the adult. It's like, if you're anxious, it's like, okay, just chill. And that immediately I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, we're cool. Let's chill out a little bit.
Yeah, no, that does not work for me even a little bit. Because because I'm going like, yeah, I'm in charge. So I'm going to continue to think about why I'm pissed and why I'm going to rationalize why I'm mad. Because again, it's like, I got mad for a reason. So I can't just go, that's stupid. Don't be mad at that. I'm getting better, but
yeah,
it's like, I need to choose other tools that have nothing to do with the situation so that it can be so blank slate. I can use this with everything. Like deep breaths. Like, I've been using that a little bit more of like, just take a second and pause and take a breath. Or like, think of something else. Disassociate from the situation. Because it's so right there that I can't talk myself out of feeling angry.
I think that's where it's like, each person's different and they need different things.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And for me, I don't want to have to rely on 14 different techniques to calm me down. You know, it's like some people have to breathe, and then it's like, oh, I have to go be active, or I have to have a specific, like, let me just get my coffee or do this. I hate being dependent on things.
Yeah.
That's like, if something is happening and I'm, anxiety were to flare up or something, and it's like, well, I don't have my crystal that I need, and I don't have my, jump rope, and I'm trying to breathe, but I don't have my calming fluid, whatever. You're fucked.
Sure.
I'm like, to me, the easiest solution is just do it in your head.
Sure.
You're always going to be able to think.
Yes.
Most likely.
Yes.
And if you can't think, you're probably not having anxiety. So I've just practiced and tried to go, hey, you're pissed. This isn't helping anything. So stop.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I don't want to have 5 different things that I need to have in order to calm down. It's like, no, it's like, what happens if you're pissed and, you're in a conversation with somebody that you maybe don't have a super great relationship with, or close enough relationship where it's like, you can just like feel comfortable to start taking deep breaths. That would freak a lot of people out.
Sure.
If you're like in a debate and then you just start going, they'd be like, is this person going to attack me? What is going on?
No. Yes.
That's where I'm like, you know what? The best solution for me is just to practice and be able to go like, hey, you're starting to get a little pissed here. Why don't you calm down? Because this conversation probably doesn't have your life riding on it.
Sure.
And it's mainly driven by ego is probably what's happening. So just chill.
Yes. And I understand the not having something outside of you. That's why for me, I do tend to go to the breaths. And yes, if I'm in a conversation, no, I'm not going to breathe heavy, but I might just like go back to my breathing, like focus on my breathing and not my thoughts. And I just slow it down. I don't, because my immediate want is to fire back and to spit back and to talk. I want to talk myself out of the anger.
Yeah.
To where I will just slow down and I will pause before I respond always. Like I will start to pause before I respond, because then that will start to just regulate me. I think for some people it might be you might need to go outsource until you can start just reeling it into yourself.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I think we aren't taught these things, that now it's getting way too out of hand.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
people are getting way too anxious. They're getting way too upset. They're letting their emotions control almost everything.
Yeah.
That's not how it's supposed to be. I don't believe that. We need to start practicing these tools. It's not, well, I'm just going to be that way, or your method of just stop. It needs to be, if you can't just stop, we can't just let it fall into this, well, I'm just going to let it be that way.
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm like, you got to practice these tools, because as a kid, clearly you weren't practicing that. So as adults now, we're just, this is how we are.
Yeah.
That we need to be, again, like you said, be the adult. Well, sometimes you got to talk yourself like a kid and give your kid the tools to, how do I actually actively do this and work on this?
And for me, it doesn't always 100% make it go away. You know, sometimes there's maybe still a little bit lingering, or maybe it comes up later of like, yeah, I'm still a little bit annoyed with it, but it's kind of the same thing. It's like, I'm just continue to, like, whether it's trying to figure out why I got pissed or why I got mad and dissecting that. Or it's just like, you're still hanging on to this. Like, just let it go. Stop.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know, the almost like parenting myself has really worked for me, because I like the simplicity.
Sure.
I don't want to have to have a hour and a half conversation with somebody to discuss why I got mad.
Yeah.
That doesn't work for me. That's a waste of time, because there's so much of it that just, it doesn't matter. It's
yeah.
like, you got mad. Try not to do that again, and stop being mad now.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah.
Move on, you know? There's something like what, we were watching Pat McAfee's show, and the Alabama head coach is on. Also, Patriots quarterback said it the other day. Like, they have a 24-hour rule. After a game, whether you win or lose, you have 24 hours to, look at your win, celebrate it, look at things you need to do better. Same with the loss. Dissect the things that you maybe did wrong and did bad, but you only have 24 hours. After that, we're moving on, because we have another game coming up, and we have to go against somebody else. That's like, life keeps going. So if you're going to sit and dwell on the same thing for a week, a month, a year, your whole life, you're just wasting time.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe it's not a 24-hour rule, but it can be something of like, okay, I am really upset. Like, I'm going to give myself another 10 minutes to be upset, and then we're moving on and we're done.
Yeah.
Because there's always time to go back and reflect and look. But if you're so pissed or have so much anxiety right now that you can't function, we're doing no good.
That's not time to understand the situation at all.
It's not time. Yeah. Figure that out later. Right now, we have to continue to work, or continue to raise our kids, or make a meal, or whatever it is. It's like, your anxiety needs to wait.
Sure.
And again, it's like, you need to be the parent. I'm going to give myself, 10 minutes to be frustrated or be anxious and whatever. But after that, like, I'm moving on and doing something positive and going back in the right direction.
Right. Well, because if you were a parent of that kid, you wouldn't want them to continue to feel that way.
No.
You'd want them, like, let's go back to playing.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the fun shit. Like, that we don't need to, yes, we fell, or, something happened where you're crying, you're upset. Okay. Like, kind of like, be there, hold the space for 2 seconds. Now, what are we doing?
And I think
Move on.
That's people don't think that they have the control. And I think for a long time, I didn't think I had the control.
And again, that's where I go back to practicing. Like, you have to practice this.
Yeah.
The tools, like, whether it's you have to figure out your own tools, let's use your thing of just get over it. But I don't know. There's a lot. That's where I'm like at a lot with things now, is like, you can't just let things happen. You have to be intentional with what you're doing. Like, just in life in general. Like, you can't just be and it'll work out.
Oh, like, you have to be actionable.
Yeah. Like,
yeah. Well,
you're not going to just, like, not be emotional one day.
And you're not going to just always think happy thoughts and everything's going to be okay.
Right.
Like, things are going to come about and upset you and, frustrate you, make you angry, make you sad, make you whatever.
It's like, for me, it's
You
like,
have to
I
find ways
typically
to-
get very angry very fast. Like, that is my go-to emotion, is like, I'm mad. I'm not going to just like one day not have that issue.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's like, I'm not going to
It's
just
always
like,
gonna be
oh,
there.
I'm 25 now. I'm calm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, no, I have to, when I get mad, practice like, okay, this is a time that I'm able to work on this tool of, let's get a little bit more calm and collected in these moments and not react.
Well, and I think a lot of people do too, with if they start to learn that about themselves, one of the things they start to do is they control everything else around them because they don't want to get mad. So they start telling you have to be the certain way. Don't do this. It'll piss me off. Don't do that. It makes me sad. Don't do this. I get anxious because of it. It's like, there's a lot of that going on now, especially with the anxiety thing of like, can you not do that thing? It gives me anxiety. It's
Sure.
like, well, you need to figure that out.
Right.
Me sitting here, spinning a pen,
Right.
that, like, you need to figure that out for yourself, because you can't walk around the world and control everybody else so that you don't feel anxiety.
Right.
It's like, that's immature and not fair.
Right.
That I think a lot of people start to do that first before they go like, oh no, I need to figure this out for myself, because things are always going to happen around me that I can't control. So I need to learn how to control my own stuff so that I don't get that way when something is happening that, makes me nervous or anxious or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Like, 'cause that empowers yourself. Like, that gives yourself, like, you are then more capable. You have more of the power.
Totally.
Versus like, if everything around me needed to go great, I would feel so,
It
again, it's
never
like
happened.
powerless. Like, I feel like then again, everything is happening to me.
Yeah.
Versus I'm able to just be and then decide how I'm going to be. It's
Yeah.
like everything, I don't know when it's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just kind of at a
Yep.
fragile state all the time. If I don't know what it's going to hit me and when it's going to hit me and what am I going to feel when it happens.
And look at that. That's anxiety.
Yeah.
Just having to think about that and deal with that all the time.
Yeah.
Like, you're literally talking about like explaining anxiety. It's like, that's what gives people that. Yeah. And I think another point to it is like, just because you're feeling an emotion doesn't mean that it's valid. You're getting anxiety or you're getting frustrated and angry. It doesn't mean that like it's valid. It doesn't mean it even means anything. It's like, oh, you're angry? Okay. Why?
Yeah.
You don't need to be. It doesn't, like, just because we can choose to be angry about anything. We can choose to be anxious about anything. It's like, oh, this person said this thing and it makes me really angry. It's like, well, maybe you should fix why that makes you angry.
Right. Or even dissect, like, does it make sense why I'm angry?
Well, right. Because again, going back to the story in the book and seeing it from a bunch of different angles, it's like you can read a book from this angle and think like this guy's the enemy and the worst the whole time. But if you choose to look at it from different points of view, and maybe you look at it from that person's point of view, you start to go like, oh, this guy isn't that bad. He's just been dealt a bad hand or whatever it is. That being in that gray area and being able to see it from all points of view, it starts to become kind of stupid of how many bad emotions we choose to like accept and feel all the time. That's like, well, I don't need to be angry over this. Like, well, they're annoying me. It's like, okay, well, don't let them annoy you.
Right.
It's like, choose to see it from a different point of view. You're only thinking about you in this. It's like, maybe think about them or think about the other people in the room, or like maybe they're feeling weird and uncomfortable.
So hard.
It's super difficult. And it's the constant conversation that I'm having with myself when I'm getting annoyed. I'm getting pissed. I don't like the setting and the situation. It's like, well, okay, for one, I can't feel happy 100% of the time. Not everything is going to be sunshine and rainbows always. But I can choose to find something positive within this, or I can choose to, like, if I'm feeling angry or annoyed, I can choose to, okay, well, don't feel that way because it's worthless. It just drags you down. It doesn't do anything good. What can be good in this?
Unless it does. Like, unless you're using that in a positive direction of, oh, this sparked aggressive anger in me. So there's got to be something there for me. Like, why did that piss me off so much? Okay, let me break down that for myself. Of like, why when anybody say this word,
Yeah.
why do I immediately go to anger? Maybe break that down. Like, why does that happen? What connections do I have that I can maybe let go of or change the narrative for myself?
Yeah.
That's like, I think most of us have things like that where it's like, oh, if I talk to this person, I'm going to get mad. Or if they bring this up, like I'm going to lose it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well then use that to, like, that can maybe be your guide. It's like how people say, like, anxiety can be positive. It's like, use it to show you where focus
You're
should
lacking,
go.
or
Where are you weak?
Yeah.
Where is something that, like, oh, you're mad about that? That's a weakness. So
Yeah.
how can I get better at my weaknesses of, oh, this is just my system's way of telling me you got some issues in that category.
Yeah.
That word gets brought up and that pisses you off. Okay, look at that.
Yeah.
Dive deeper into that.
Yeah.
Because then you can just eliminate more things that are going to make you mad, or understand yourself more of, why did I even get mad at that?
Yeah. Well, and there's so much of it that, if you have an issue with somebody at the moment, and then it's like everything they say now pisses you off and is annoying.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if you were at a normal state, that wouldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where I mean, like, your emotions aren't valid. They don't necessarily mean that.
Right.
That it's like, it makes sense. It's like sometimes you're just feeling stuff for no reason, and you can kind of, well, maybe not no reason.
Yeah.
But I can't think of any other word than valid. Like, it's just not valid.
Well, what's that
You're
saying? Like,
just-
feelings aren't facts.
Yeah, and it doesn't even necessarily mean like you're right for feeling that.
Sure.
It's like, well,
Sure.
when you said that, it really annoyed me. It's like, okay, well, that seems like it's your problem, because my intention was not to annoy you. Like,
Sure.
my intention was to bring up a conversation and talk about something and just see where it goes. And you got annoyed by it. It's like, your emotion isn't necessarily valid.
I don't know if I agree with your emotion isn't valid. What I don't agree with is the assigning of the blame. I think we do too much. I'm feeling this. Who can I blame and what can I blame? Versus, in my head going, wow, that really pissed me off. Or, wow, that was annoying that they did that. Or, wow, that annoyed me that they said that. That's as far as it needs to go. I don't need to tell that person. I don't need to go, wow, you pissed me off right now. It's just, okay, that brought something up in me. Interesting. I can either analyze that right in this moment, or I can just, okay, check that for later. But I can still have a conversation. That person doesn't need to know what I'm feeling.
Well, and
or that thing. It's like, the blame is in. Because we might be in the same conversation with somebody else and it pisses me off and you don't think twice about it. So clearly it's not a fact, because I'm the only one feeling it. So I don't need to bring that on to you guys. Also, that's something that, okay, it's valid for me because that's something I need to look at, or it made me upset, so I can, analyze that later. Or don't, just let it go. Like, okay, that's something that made me angry, but I'm not going to have my actions reflect that. Just as you're like, yeah, that didn't bother me at all.
Yeah, I don't know. I still don't think it's valid.
But then what emotions are valid ever?
None.
Oh, okay.
None ever. I mean, it's like somebody could feel happy about something and another person not. And maybe valid's not the right word necessarily. Maybe it's just like right or wrong.
Sure.
No, there's no right or wrong feelings. It's not like you're supposed, how many times is it like, like, oh, I love going to concerts. And then I'm like, no, I don't. I would rather do anything other than be around a bunch of people that it's a super loud environment and, whatever. Neither is right or wrong. The same way, like, that makes them very happy. It doesn't mean that that's right. Because to me, I would be pissed. But it doesn't mean that my emotion is right. And I think there's an argument maybe for like, well, that's right for me and that's right for them.
Right.
But again, I think that's a narrow view to look at things, because now I'm coming from concerts annoy me and that's right. Well, it's right for me, but it also could not be.
Are you saying it in the sense of we're allowing our emotions to be too concrete versus like kind of forever changing?
Yes, and that even in that moment, it might not be valid. It's like, just because you're pissed doesn't mean that it's correct or that it's right. You know, it's like we're all at a family gathering and whatever, and somebody does something and it pisses somebody else off, and now that person's all be pissed off and whatever, and you talk to them about it maybe later or privately, and they're upset and whatever, and it's like, okay, you're pissed, but nobody else is. You're the only one who's pissed, and like, what is it doing? I think that's what I come back to a lot of the time, is like, what is it even doing for you? It's like you being anxious and annoyed and mad and all these negative emotions that don't make you feel good. It's doing nothing for you, nothing good. So why not just pick a different emotion to feel?
Sure. And maybe that's where I'm losing you, like, or not losing you, like, I'm not understanding.
I think everybody's losing me at this point.
Like, is having an emotion or having a thought on something, it's not that it's not right or wrong or valid or not valid, or you're feeling it or you're not feeling it. To me, it comes down to the action. Like, feel whatever you want, but there are actions that are right or wrong. There are actions that are going to be better or not as good. Like, they're going to serve you or they're not. Like the Rogan thing. You have a thought of, I want to stay in bed, and your emotions are, yeah, that makes me sad to think that I have to get up because I'm going to hate the rest of my day or whatever I have to do today. Like, I'm nervous about. Okay, well, feel what you want to feel, but are you going to be the person that gets out of bed when you wanted to get out of bed, or are you going to be the person that doesn't get out of bed? To me, it's all in the actions of what are you doing after you feel that? Am I going to be angry in the conversation and then freak out on you? Or am I going to still feel angry, collect myself as much as I can, and then try to respond with maturity?
Yeah, I totally agree.
I think where the valid truth, yes, no, correct or not, is a lot of us are choosing to act on our initial emotion.
Yeah.
Versus what emotion do you want to feel, and then act on that emotion.
Yeah. Well, because a lot of the time your response or your action is dictated on that emotion.
Right.
And I think that's why I'm going, like, just don't have a negative emotion. Switch it to a positive, or choose a positive, or even choose just like a neutral. And be in neutral and then act upon that. And that's also why I go, the emotions aren't valid. That you're in bed and you can't get out, you're going like, oh, I could stay here, or thinking about getting up makes me so sad. You could also go, getting up and being productive is going to make me happy. So it's like, you could choose whichever one you want. And to be in, and like, the fact that we can, it's like what I said. One day I want to go work out and I'm super into it. The next day I don't want to at all, and I'm sad that I have to go do it, or upset. It's like, they're not valid. Because you can choose whichever one. And it's kind of just like whatever one surfaces, you have to deal with. And if it's the positive one, ride it. If it's the negative one, well, I don't like that. So let me choose get a positive one. Why I keep saying it's not valid is because it's just so either or all the time. It's like I'm saying, some days I get up and I'm like, fuck today. And then other days I get up, I'm like, all right, let's go. It's like your emotions are so worthless in a way. Because whether I'm sad or happy, I can still get up and go do my day however I want to do it. And that can be in the productive way of like, let's get up early, like we said, go for a walk, make a healthy breakfast, go get some exercise, do all of the positive things. It doesn't matter if I'm pissed off and angry and sad the whole day. If I'm doing those actions, I'm getting that stuff done. And if I'm happy-go-lucky the whole time, I'm getting that stuff done. Neither of them have validity to it because I can do my shit without either of them or with either of them. But we get so ingrained in like, I need to feel good to go work out or to make a good meal. I need to feel motivated, or I feel sad. I can't do these things now. It's like, you can still get up off your ass whether you feel good or don't feel good.
Yes. I feel like we're having one of those conversations where we're saying the same thing, but our approaches are different. And that's where I'm having the disconnect. Because like, I agree. To me, it's like, it all comes down to the action. If you can still, like, yes, you should still be able to get up and do whatever you want and do the action that you are wanting. Again, it's like I said, if I'm in the conversation, I don't want to act on anger. But that's where I think the disconnect is, including myself. I think a lot of people are needing to practice that I'm feeling this, but let's act on this, versus what you said of, I'm going to act based off of how I'm feeling versus what do I want to do? How do I want to be? What action do I want to take? That maybe you're not so much having the like emotions and actions going together, or you're better at that, or maybe not you're better at that, but you're able to not have it affect how you're doing it. I think another disconnect is, and maybe it's just because it's something I struggle with, I don't think don't feel that. Like just choosing we'll just stop being mad at that, or just like choose the positive one. I don't think that is as easy as it is for you. For some people. I don't know if maybe I'm the only person, but that's not a simple switch for me. I don't have that flip-flop as much as you're talking about. Like, it's not like today I could feel horrible about this thing and then tomorrow I like it. Or I could feel bad today. I don't have that switch, really. It's like I always feel that way about that thing. I always feel that way about that thing. There's not like a mix of emotions typically.
I wasn't trying to say act on, whether you're sad, get up and do it and go, whether you're happy, get up and do it, go, that sort of thing. I still think if you're feeling those negative emotions, you should switch to the positive and go for it, because like we talked about in a conversation, you don't want to be coming off as frustrated, mad, angry, all that kind of stuff, because it will come through if you're coming from that emotion. That I think you need to address that first and go like, hey, I'm mad. Whatever your way of trying to reduce that, let's figure this out, and then I can try to respond or talk in a way that's mature and not coming from anger and that sort of thing. My point with that was trying to show, in my opinion, of how invalid emotions are. It's like the action can still be done with a negative emotion or a positive. That's what I was trying to explain.
Okay.
I still think it's a better life if you choose to just be in the positive and try to see things from that point of view, and do your best to switch to that if things aren't, if you're upset or whatever. And I agree, and I understand that it is difficult to just like go like, I'm not gonna be mad anymore, and it doesn't work 100% of the time. It doesn't always just like flip that quickly either.
And that also doesn't mean don't try.
And because to me it's like anything. You're working that muscle. It's practice. The more that you are doing it and trying to do it to make it work, like I feel like I've gotten better at it and able to do it quicker, and it actually sticks and lasts longer and that sort of thing. But I think a great example is when you're exercising and it starts to get hard, and you start to get that kind of quitter mindset of like, let me just back down and let me get out of here. Let me find a way out. Let me adjust this a little bit so it's a little bit easier so I can get out. You can easily just go, no, we're going to keep pushing. And that just quick redirect has been so useful to me that I think that one's not so much based on emotion per se, as much as just like, are you gonna push it or are you not?
Well, it's going back to
you start to quit, and then it's like, let's just not.
The thought and the action, like that is just like again, it's not on an emotion, but you're feeling something. So you're feeling something, and you're not reacting based off of the feeling. So maybe that's more of like a physical exertion versus an emotional effect. Yeah. But it's still, your action is, you're choosing the action that you want, not what your body is feeling.
Yeah.
So I think that's the same thing with the emotions. I'm mad, but I am not going to act on the anger. I would like to handle this situation with someone that's not being mad. So I'm going to talk like I'm not mad.
Yeah.
It's like, that's where I go with the valid, like, you're still feeling that. That's true. Like, that is the reality is you're tired. The reality is you're mad. The reality is whatever. I just care about how you act going forward off of feeling that. You can feel whatever you want. It is better to feel the positive, but your action is yes or no.
Yeah. Yeah. Whether you do it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, we all know how to be good people. Yeah. I can't say, oh, it's smart that you got mad at that, or you shouldn't get mad at that. Who knows? That is there. We don't know the answers to those, but we do know what's being a polite person.
Yeah. And I think that's where, and I totally think you are feeling that. I feel the emotions too. I'm not like, I'm sure you are feeling mad, but there's no reason to be. And you can rationalize and make up all the shit that you want to say why I'm mad, but at the end of the day, like, it doesn't matter.
Sure.
This is my opinion. This is the way I think of it. And
yes.
Like, I don't think there's a right or wrong in this. I'm not trying to come across of like, this is factual.
Sure.
This is the way that I choose to view the world.
Totally.
It's worthless. It's completely worthless.
Sure.
You getting mad and upset and then walking around like that does no good for anybody, doesn't do good for yourself, and it's not valid. Yeah. So why, like, I think that's where I've done the equation of like, okay, when I get to the end result, it does no good. So why do it? It's like taking a hammer and just hitting your hand with it over and over and over again. It's like, why are you doing it? Choose not to. We can control, like, that's where I'm starting to go like, oh, I can put my own thoughts in my head. Mm-hmm. So why am I not just choosing to switch it and do something different? And that's where I go, your feelings and emotions just aren't valid. And it's true in the positive way too. It's like, I'm happy and this is fun, this is whatever, but I can easily choose to make this suck. Sure. Just of the things that I think. And that's where I'm like, this whole emotions and thoughts and like letting it control you and stuff, you have so much more control over it than you think you do. Because in those times of like happy and fun and excitement, I can just let that ride and choose to continue to do that. But I could also choose to go like, oh, think about everything that sucks in your life right now. And I can totally ruin this whole moment. And I could ruin it for other people too.
Sure.
And it's the same thing of like, you could make this better for yourself and other people as well.
Well, okay, I think that's maybe where I can agree. I think a huge part of me wants to say, I don't agree. Like you have no reason to be mad kind of thing. That immediately makes me go, interesting. But that's also a good point but yeah, like watching football, you have a lot of enjoyment with that. I don't. So both of those exist the same way that when we go on a walk and I look at the sky and the horizon, I'm like, wow, this is so awesome. And you could care less, or that you saying that makes me angry. It doesn't make you angry. So it's like both of those exist.
Yeah.
And they're both happening. It's not like, well, that would make everybody mad. So that's the thing to be angry about, because everybody's agreeing. Everybody's feeling that same thing. Like, it is so not factual.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I do agree with you on that of like, well, that person, there's someone that wouldn't get mad at that. So you can just be that person. Like, I think like if you punched me in the face right now, that would make me mad.
But there's someone. But that's an action. That's not an emotion.
But still, I'm getting mad at your action. The same way that if someone's talking to me and I'm getting mad at the words they're saying, I'm getting mad at your action of why are you saying that?
Yeah.
That's a stupid thing to say.
Yeah.
Well, same way if you punch me in the face, I could get angry at that. Some guy next to me, that's his favorite thing. So
hit me too.
it's like it's silly, but when you break it down to those things, it's like, yeah, you're choosing to get angry at that. That guy loves it.
Yeah.
That's his happiness, and I'm mad. So you can choose to just now the physical, sure, deal with the pain, but my emotion surrounding it doesn't have to be that.
Well, and it's even that. It's like you can choose to, you're going for a run or you're lifting weights or something and you start to feel the fatigue and the tired and the pain. You can choose to be like, yeah, I'm fucking killing it. Mm-hmm. This is what comes with this.
Yeah.
Is the difficulty and the hard and pushing through. And that is positive.
Yeah.
Instead, a lot of people go like, I need to stop. This hurts. I can't do anymore. You know, it's like it just drowns them.
That's where I agree. We do have more control than we think. I think people that are more emotional, like say, like that's what I've said on how many podcasts before, like, our weaknesses are what our strengths. Like, are you emotionally tough? Are you physically tough? Are you mentally tough? I am emotionally not tough. So this is something that I am very much so working on. And I'm sure we can see through this conversation, like I'm getting way more sparked than you are with some of this, but it's like, we know even in your brain, like the brain, like the chemical reaction that's happening with anxiety, it's the same exact chemical reaction when you're excited. It's just, we're choosing how are we gonna feel it. It's like when you're thinking of something awesome, if you actually thought of the feeling, it's the same thing as being anxious. You get like, but it's like, if I'm thinking of something that I don't like, I'm getting that same response, that adrenaline, that, flush, like that's the same feeling. But our thoughts and all the emotions that we're connecting to it and like piling it on, now it's a negative.
Yeah.
Even though our brain's going, it's the same to us.
Yeah, the chemicals are the same. And that's why like it's a choice.
Yeah.
I think we both agree to that. Like it's a choice with that. I've just found this works for me.
Sure.
Of just like kind of viewing it that way and seeing it that way. And I've yet to kind of find the hole or poke the hole in it. And maybe at some point there will be. And I'll have to readjust my thinking on it. But I don't know. To me, it's like, it simplifies so much. And I have experiences of like, oh, I'm pissed about this thing. Mm-hmm. And then just being able to go, well, stop. What's it worth? What's it doing? Is it making your day? Is it really worth the time to, and that's what, like, even how I am now, having more of a conversation with it. That's what I was doing more in the beginning of like almost trying to rationalize on why not to be pissed.
Right.
And coming up with the reasons on why not to be pissed, of like, it's not going to make your day better. It's not going to like help you navigate through the rest of this time and like make it fun for you, exciting for you. Like, so why are you feeling it? To where now it's kind of just like, stop.
Sure.
Like, oh yeah. Okay. I've already had this conversation. I know why, just to stop. Because I've already had the conversation multiple times.
Yeah.
That it's taken 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. It's like, I don't need to have that hour conversation with myself on why to not be mad anymore. It's like, stop being mad. It's stupid. And you're like, oh yeah, it is kind of dumb.
Yeah.
And that still doesn't always work. And I maybe need to tell myself that again later when I'm like, hey, you're still kind of being weird. It's like, oh yeah, okay. Stop.
I think I'm getting, well, another thing that I've, I don't know, I'm working on too is what I talked about, like the ghost emotions. Like, this one psychologist was talking about how some emotions that we have or that just like automatically come up when, again, like a word is said or whatever, it might not even be valid anymore with how we feel. It's just that was ingrained in us to feel that way, whether it's people around us or our parents feel that way about that thing, or that happened to you 10 years ago and that was your response. But as a 15-year-old, I'm not 15 anymore. So do I need to feel that same way about it? Like, do I still think that a way about it? Okay, so then my emotions can reflect my new way of thinking. But because of ghost emotions, like I'm still holding on to whatever my first initial thought on it was, an emotion on it was, that I'm trying to go back. Like when I don't get angry that much now or like have any negative emotions come up that much anymore. But if they do, with again the practicing, like the breathing and just the pausing, I'm also like, is this something that I actually still care about? Like, is this something that makes me mad still? Like, is this something that I can choose to have a different viewpoint on? Or maybe even like, have I looked at this from different angles now as an adult brain, able to go, well, I actually do understand where they were coming from now. Like, I'm in their shoes now. I can see why they were doing that because X, Y, Z, or that, do I even need to have that thought process on it and emotion on that? I'm trying to break that down more by using the data that I have. Like when we're fighting, before I would hold on to that and just like really stay mad. To where now I'm like, what are you going to do about it? You going to break up with them? You going to yell at them? You going to like, what's going to happen? You're probably just going to move on. So you can just do that now.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, I think that is happening a lot, I'm sure. And same for with me. It's like something happens and maybe it's kind of familiar and you immediately start to feel something about it and you don't really even take the time to like, why am I feeling this? Or like, do I even feel that way about it anymore? If I really think about it, it's like, does this actually bother me still? Or does this actually, frustrate me? And it's like, oh no, I'm not that person anymore or whatever. But it's just, we get so, it's almost like you recognize the thing and you immediately just go back into, oh, I'm going to feel this way about it now. Yeah.
Well, I did that today. Like I was in the shower and I thought I heard you listening to the Golden Hour with Harlan on it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, he knows, like that is one podcast I definitely would want to listen to, and he can't wait until I'm done. And like, that's where I was like, really? Like he wouldn't wait or what? Like that's, to me, it's like, I went right back into the getting mad and then like, oh, why is he being, and I was like, no, he's really not selfish like that anymore. Like I do think he would have thought of me with that. And even if he didn't, I don't have to go to the, he's being selfish and he doesn't care about you and he doesn't think about you. It's probably, he thought, I can more rationalize like, well, there's how many podcasts that he starts while I'm still getting ready and I just walk in and I just catch whatever we're watching. So why would he think that this is any different? Like that's our routine every day. So why would this podcast that I want to watch be any different than all the other podcasts that I enjoy? It's like, that is just my old thinking of, he's being selfish. He doesn't care about you. He's never thinking about you. So be mad about that.
Yeah.
It's like, or not. And I can come here and you're not even watching that podcast.
Yeah.
It's like, I could have been spiraling about that.
Yeah.
And come out pissed. Whereas like, okay, even if he is doing that, I can choose to think that's probably not from malicious things.
Yeah.
And even if it is that the worst thing that's going to happen? It's like, he's probably, doing something else that's awesome and thinking of me. Am I going to hang my anger hat on a podcast?
Yeah.
That I can easily just go back and watch myself?
It's like you never see it.
It's like, there's so many other things that you do that you are thinking of me and you are helping and whatever. It's like, that's not what I want to hold on to anymore. Sure, before, 100% I would have. And even the thought, even if I came out and you aren't watching that podcast, I still have been like, yeah, but he would have done that. That would be something he would do. It's like crazy person.
Yeah. And for the record, I was not watching that podcast.
No, that's saying I came out and you weren't even.
I did think of you and go, I probably shouldn't watch that. She's going to want to see it from start to finish. So.
Exactly.
So not selfish.
No.
Today.
No.
That's funny.
But yeah, but again, it's like, that was okay, no, right in this moment, rewrite the story. Is that what is currently happening? Is that your current state of the relationship? Is that your current way that you want to think about that? No. Boy. So that's my go-to is be angry. Well, right now, change. Like, again, choose the positive.
And that's like, control the conversation in your head.
Exactly.
Like, be in control of it, because I think that's the perfect example of it. So it's like your first initial kind of flare up and emotions and thoughts about it and all that kind of stuff. It's like, not to say that your first initial is always wrong or anything like that, but you kind of need to have a conversation, especially with something negative like that.
Yes.
It's like, you kind of need to have a conversation, and then you need to be the adult in that conversation. It's like, let's be the adult and look at it from all angles and see what the reality of it is. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I think luckily within our relationship, it is like better in that way now, where it's like, I do think about you and I do things for you, and I, whatever, all of those things that you were saying, that's like, you can go to that and rely on it and have that conversation, to where you don't want to just like make that shit up and lie to yourself. That's not good.
No.
But to be able to have that conversation and turn it positive and be in control of it.
Update your software. That's no longer the story. So I'm not going to have my thoughts and emotions be something that isn't in the current reality.
Right. Yeah. And even if it was, the current reality was like, I would do something like that and it would be selfish and all of that kind of all of that sort of thing. Like, you can still make it more positive. You can still be in control of that conversation in your head and go like, okay, but I can watch it whenever I want.
Right.
I don't need to watch it with him.
Right.
He doesn't, like, I can always, catch whatever is left and then start it from the beginning and watch it through or whatever. It's like, even if you don't have these other things to rely on, like, you can still turn it positive.
Well, and even again, like the action, there's a very different way to handle that versus me coming out and like, what the hell? Why are you watching that? And actually getting mad versus like, wow, someone started the podcast without me. It's like, and then let it go. Like, and not doing that in a manipulative or a passive aggressive way. Just like, oh yeah, I noticed that you started watching it. Whatever. I'm not going to be mad at you. I'm going to do it on my own. Like, watch it on my own time. Like, I can easily rewind, but that might be like, oh, that's something that I'm going to, I guess maybe I could have next time started. Like, I didn't think about that. Doesn't mean that you hate me.
Right.
It's just, maybe that's not where your brain went.
Right. Well, and I think you kind of alluded to it too, just, I say I am watching it and start it without you and all of that, and you come out and you're kind of thinking like, what the hell? It's also just like, this does not matter. It's like, grow up.
Sure.
It's a podcast.
Right.
That I chose to watch.
Yes.
And this happens all the time. It's like the amount that people get upset about things is just so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And they hang on to it. And it's like, really? This is a big deal to you because I turned on a podcast without you?
Yeah.
It's like, man, we got way bigger issues than this. It's like, this does not matter at all. It's like to think about what the conversations, at least in my made up head, that like my grandparents would have. Is this ever going to piss off either of my grandparents? It's like, this means nothing.
Sure.
This is so minuscule. It's like, why are you even getting pissed about this?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I said, those first emotions kind of come up so quick that I can understand like initially being like, oh, what the hell? But to then just go like, oh, this doesn't matter. This is not a big deal.
Right.
We don't need to be frustrated or mad at this at all. I think to choose to continue to be mad about something like that, it's so stupid. It's like, you're mad about the smallest
then I think if you're able
ever.
to let that go or like rationalize with yourself or like, again, like change a different emotion, then when like the real actually serious stuff happens, like say if I would actually be mad at you and like come out and be like, wow, now when I come to you with something serious, it's like, well,
Boy,
is it the same as when I turned the podcast on? Or
yeah.
It's like,
well, and then it's like, add it to the freaking list.
right.
What aren't you pissed about?
Right.
And it goes both ways. That's where I'm just like, there needs to be a certain amount of maturity and just like grow the fuck up of a lot of stuff. It's like, really, you're upset because I drank the last little bit of milk or the last soda or something? It's like, we can go get more or whatever. It's like,
yeah. And again, I think that's where you zoom out, whether that's with a partner or a friend or parents or siblings or your job or whatever. I think zoom out of that, because that one situation will feel very big. That doesn't mean that it's everything. And I think if you can zoom out of, okay, yeah, maybe they drank the last thing of milk and, you know, that sucks. But how many other things are they awesome with? Or maybe that they left the last sip for you or whatever. It's like you're taking that one thing and making it everything potentially. Or like, oh, you had one bad day at work. That doesn't mean quit. You're going to have some bad days. Or you have one coworker that you don't like, but all the other ones you like. Great. It's like, do the numbers game. It's like, okay, well, is that person sucking every day and doing that every single time? And then you're like, yeah, go get more. And they are like, yeah, you go more. It's like, if they just, okay, sure, then maybe that just doesn't work out for you or whatever. But if majority of the things or majority of the time are good, again, it's like the zooming out. I think that can also eliminate so much of the intensity of the emotion, because I was like, overall, is this going to matter that much? Probably not.
And I think the goal should be to eliminate all those things that do bother you. The goal should be to not have so many things upset you.
Sure.
And make you sad and make you mad and do all that stuff. But I think people are almost going the opposite way of like, they're trying to find things that upset them more and make them mad. That's like, you're just creating a mad, sad life.
Yeah.
To where if you, and that's where I go, like, I think so much of it is just like, grow up. Like, you're mad because somebody cut you off in traffic. It's like, happens every fucking day. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's going to happen to you. There's no, and you're probably going to do it too.
Yeah.
That like, this isn't worth the bitching and moaning about it. And the person you're living with is going to turn on a podcast that you wanted to watch. It's like, that's what happens. Yeah. That if you're letting that dictate so much of your emotions in life, and it's like, it's so worthless and doesn't do any good for you. That's like, I'm trying to eliminate as many of those as I can, because now I don't have anything that really upsets me or bothers me. It's like, what a freaking life.
Right. Right. I feel done.
Cool. Yeah.
More so because I got a piece of it.
Nice. hey, good job.
Thank you.